SQL Server since about 7. I've touched some 6.5, but not really. And these days, 95% of my time is spent in Azure. I work with Synapse Analytics, Databricks, Data Factory. We've just moved a data warehouse to the cloud that had 200 terabytes of data, tables that had 60 billion rows in them. It's fun to play with this stuff. I'm a huge PowerShell fan. I love to do anything I can with PowerShell. You also need it a lot when you run things in Azure, unless you want to learn Bash. I don't, so give me PowerShell any time of the day. And I'm a Python student because you sort of kind of start needing that as well. And for today, the only thing I wanted to do is show you something. That is it. So a little bit of code that does actually does something useful. So you can actually steal my code and tinker with it and do something with it and extend on it if you want to. And I found a use case where Python is better than PowerShell, I think. What we're going to build is a little utility, command line utility in Python that you point at a table in a SQL Server and it will grab that table and dump it into a file. And I guarantee you it will be just as fast as SSIS, because that's the trick. That is what PowerShell can never do. PowerShell is not that quick on those things. And it's just a few lines of code, and we're going to make the command line handling and everything in there to make it to show you a bit what Python can do and how easy it is to write something, or in my case, copy paste. Let's keep an eye on the time. All right, cool. So what I'm not going to do is start from the very beginning, like how to install Python and how to install libraries and whatnot. These are there are millions and millions of YouTube videos about this. It's really simple. That's not what this is about. I want to get to the part, since we only have half an hour, to write something useful that you can use to give you an idea on how that works. And if I would also do the installation instructions and how those scenarios all work and what coding environments you can use, would be here forever. So very simple. I'm using VS Code. I like it. I'm a fan, but there are other programs that you can use to write Python in. I'm just going to use VS Code for this one. There's a few other things that we need. Installing a library, like the install module from PowerShell equivalent in Python, is pip. And we need a few things. We need ODBC. We need argparse to parse the arguments that you pass in on the command line and handle them. And we need to install logging. There's a few other libraries that we will use, but those are built in, so you don't have to install them. If you've never used pip before, just go to the command line and go pip install pyodbc. Boom, done. That's how that works. You don't have to be inside a Python environment. You have to just be in a command line after you've installed Python. That's basically it. So we can dive into some code, shall we? Here's all the code we have now. As you can see, there's absolutely nothing. So what I'll do is sneak my example code on the left side that you can't see if I shared the screens correctly, but there's a big red square around the one that's empty, so it should be good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call it bcp.py. BCP is just a joke to the bulk copy program from SQL Server. We're not going to build the whole thing, but I'm just going to call it Python bulk copy program. It's a bit silly, but okay. And because I named it .py, Visual Studio Code understands, you're going to write Python. Excellent, let's do this. So let's actually do this. Let's start with something. We want to create an application that is a command line application, and you want to feed some command line arguments. Now there's some stuff built in, but the easiest way to do that is to use the argparse library, and all we need to do to use that is go in import argparse, and then and I'll the code. Let's take these first to show you how that works. Hit save. These are just a few arguments that will help you get some arguments and parse them into the application. This already works. If I'll show you later, once it actually does something useful and not switch screens all the time. But now basically we've already created a command line application that will ask for a SQL Server database, a table, and an output file. And they're mandatory because we haven't specified that they're not. That's how easy it works. There's a few other options that we'll add now. Let's do that here. So what I've done here, these are a little bit different. Oh, by the way, I can blow this up. This is probably better. Oh, my example code also goes up. Interesting, VS Code. What are you doing? I have two VS Codes and I do Control Plus and both of them now enlarged. Interesting stuff. So what I added here is a quiet switch because I'm going to introduce some logging as well. So it's going to tell me what the steps are. I'm grabbing data from the table and I've imported into a file and all this, opened the file and all these things. I'm going to log a lot to show you how that works. And this is a quiet switch that I've built in that I can use to say, okay, don't log anything if I said it should be quiet. If you schedule it at night or just don't want all this stuff on the screen, all that kind of stuff. So this has switches. So these things here don't have switches. So these are just mandatory parameters and they're in the order that you see them. So you have to put the SQL Server, the database, the table, and the output file in the command line, and then you have some non-mandatory switches that you can use. So this is the -q or --quiet, whichever one you like, and all it will do is create a quiet variable, and it will store the true in the variable. If you do -q on the command line, you don't have to say is true. You just do -q, done, and then in Python you will have this argument. Same here with the progress indicator value. Only it doesn't do true or false. It is an int, and you can give it a number. And the default is 1,000,000. So maybe we want to show where we are on exporting the file if we have a big file, and I'll do 1,000,000 because I have some big tables here that we can export. Got to prove that it's faster than SSIS, right? Or just as fast. So that's basically how it works, and we'll look at it later how that works. All I have to do now is add the last little line of code, and that's it. Now my args parameter has the command line arguments that we've entered, and they've all been checked. If you make a mistake, they'll throw an error and the application won't run. If you don't enter a mandatory parameter, the application will yell at you. So this is already some nice checking. Now, also, we want to measure how long we're running. So I'll add the date time. And it complains now because date time is an external thing. It's not built into the standard. So we have to import that as well. But what I'm going to do is not import the whole library. I just want the datetime function. And the datetime function comes from the datetime library. So if I import the datetime library and I wanted to use just the datetime function inside the datetime library, I would have to type datetime.datetime.now the whole time. It's a lot of time. So you can actually choose how much you import from a library if you only need one function. So I'm just going to go from datetime, import datetime. This might sound a bit weird, but the second datetime is a function that lives in the datetime library. And if I hit save now, it should say that, there we go, the datetime is now okay. So far, so good. Let's see, there is some logging that we want to do. So let's do some logging as well. And I want to use ODBC, so I want to import PyODBC, and there, because we are handling CSV files, I'm going to import the CSV library as well. And there are a few commands that have to do with the logging that I'll paste here. These just make sure that the logging format has a nice message with the date and the time, and then a message, so you can have a nice formatted logging on the screen. This is, oh, by the way, the code is all in a gist, and I'll give you the link. So you can just copy this thing, no problem. Now, how does that logging work? Well, let's connect to a database, but first let's log that thing, right? So you basically say logging.info, and here is the string that I use. So connecting to database blah on SQL Server blah, and then I give the args.database and args.SQL Server to make this a complete logging string, and it will have the date time in front of it because that's what the format said. It said do the time first and then do the message. And there's even a datetime format message on how it would do the time. So all we have to do to log something on the screen is use this string. Now, what is this if not quiet? The quiet is this parameter option here. If I type -- quiet at the command line, it just won't log anything because I said if not quiet. Now, here comes a little thing that PowerShell people might be wondering about. Where are the brackets? Because you're doing an if, and then there is something that does it. It does because of the if. And where are the brackets for the thing, for the loop? There aren't any. If I just keep indenting stuff, it all belongs to that if statement. So the empty space has meaning there. I kind of like it. It's nice and clean. Not everybody does, but I'm a fan. All these brackets, I don't know. Fight me on that one. I'm totally used to them in PowerShell, but I like them in Python. So far so good, but we haven't actually done anything, right? Just some plumbing. So let's get to make something that you'd probably recognize because we're logging into a SQL server. We need a connection string. So far, so good. pyodbc.connect. We have a driver. I'm using the SQL Server native client. There are a bunch. You can actually type them out if you have the program type them out if you want to. And we're making a connection string based on the input argument. So I've put the SQL Server name here. I've put the database here, and I'm telling it it's a trusted connection. We're using Windows authentication. All your username and password people, this thing doesn't understand it. Just no. Doesn't work. Now we need another thing to, if I talk about the table, if I give it the table that I want to export, I want the header in the top of the file, so I need the header. So I have a metadata query that just gets the columns from the sys.tables and the sys.columns in SQL Server. So I'm creating a string here. We're all DBAs, so we might seen these system tables in the sys.columns to join to get the column names from a table and order them by column ID, so you get them in the right order for your header. And this is a string that you can format. So I just basically make a string here, starts here, and then you see these options here, this in the middle of the string, and then I replace them later with the dot format function. You can put as many options in there to, and then add the parameters at the end. This allows you to, you don't have to do end quote plus string plus quote, unquote the quote. When you have double quotes, you just make the string and then add the arguments in later. It's a cleaner way of making a string. So what we also need is, of course, the query that gets the information from the table. As we see here, select star from whatever table we're getting stuff from. And then we need to run the thing. We need to get the actual first we need to get the metadata query. So for dramatic effect, I'm going to type this line and not copy paste it. And as we are DBAs maybe in this group of people that are watching this, don't be scared. But here we, oh, my screen just flashed. Hope oh, it's back. Don't be scared, but here we go. Cursor is connection dot cursor. Now the first time I saw this scared me, but don't worry. I've profiled this. It's not actually a cursor as we know it in SQL Server. It's not that super slow cursor thingy. This is just the naming convention in Python. Python calls this a cursor, but the query to the SQL Server is actually just a statement, and it gets the result set. It's not a cursor. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Now, then after starting it, we have to execute the thing. I'll put this a bit higher. We have to execute the thing, and now we have the header. And you could write the header to a file. So first we need a file. And that works like this. So you open a file. The file name is the output file. I open it for write. The new line character is just carries return line feed. Just leave it empty and it will use the default. And it's UTF-8, so it's Unicode. Nice and supported. And then we need a writer that writes to the file. And the writer has the file handle, which is this parameter right here. And here's the interesting part that I love about this function. There's another thing that I love really much, but we'll see. The quoting. What do you use as a delimiter? How does that work? Quote minimal is brilliant. What it does, by default, it takes a comma separator because CSV, but you can choose. I just stick with the comma. And if you do quote minimal, it will take text lines, columns, and only if there's a comma in it, it will quote it out. So it won't be confused with the column delimiters. And if there are quotes in the text, it will escape those quotes, and it will do it perfectly. So you will only have them when needed. That sounds weird, but it works really well. And I've tried this also with to import it again with SSIS or a bulk insert or even Polybase, and they all understand how this works. So I kind of like this thing. There's no thinking. Just quoting. I don't know. You figure it out, kind of thing. So that works for me. I like this one. So now we can write the header. We haven't created the header yet. So there is one way of creating a header that I want to show you. And that is, get rid of the squiggly lines. You can create a header like this. You can do header is, and then between brackets, ID, name, blah. This is how you can create a header. And this probably needs to be in quotes. So this is how you can create a collection. And if I write this now, it becomes a line that you can just write, and it will, because the writer does the quoting correctly, it will handle all the commas and the quoting and the escaping for you. Now, I'm not typing it out. I just want it from the metadata. So you can actually put a piece of code inside the brackets, and Python will handle this for you. Okay, screen, come back. Yeah, there we go. It actually has a it has a name. I forgot what the name is of this way of working, but this is really cool. You don't have to create a loop or anything. Basically, the loop is inside the brackets, and it creates the collection for you, and then you can just write it out to a file. All right, why is it complaining about the quiet? Did I mistype something? Interesting. It's complaining. I don't know why. Don't worry. I have a copy of this code ready that does work. This is the first time that happens. All right. After we've done the header, we have to write the rest of the file. So we'll take the file and set the row counter to 0 because we want to keep an eye. We have this counter thingy that we have to keep an eye on. So we kind of need that. And then comes I'll do the rest of the application first before I add the writing to the file itself. So put that a bit down here. I calculate at the end how long did it take to execute the thing, and then if not quiet, I'll write it. I'll log that as well. Why are you not complaining about this quiet and you are? Oh, you are. And I hit save. Okay, something wrong there. We'll get to that. And here comes the part where you actually export the file. Boom, that's all. What I'm doing here, don't mind the quiet thingy, undefined quiet. Interesting. So what I'm doing here for row and cursor. So this is the table itself. It just goes through every row. So this is a loop, and you can say, okay, here's the colon, and that starts the loop, and the rest is done by intention. As long as you're indented, it counts as part of the loop. And here's the cool part. I don't have to go through the loop through the columns and put all the columns in a collection and put commas in between them or anything. I've just said I've got a writer that takes a row that is a collection of rows, and you just have to write them with all the rules that you have. So if one of the variables in that collection has a delimiter has a comma in there, that would screw things up. So I want you to quote the thing and everything. Just handle it. So all I have to do is feed that row to the writer. That's it. That's done. After I've done that, I'll just add one to the row counter, and then I have a modulus function that sees, did I write a million rows yet? And if I did, and I didn't say that you need to be quiet, then log that I exported a bunch of rows. So far, so good, right? Now I must have made a typo with the parse logging. I have no idea why it complains about the quiet. That's interesting. I'm looking at both screens, they're both the same. All right, that's interesting. Now the proof. I will magically switch to the one that does work. So I will go to the SQL bits version that I had. I have a DBCC directory here, but I don't know why it does the quiet thing. That's a demo effect, I'm guessing. So I'll just say Python and then bcp.py, and if I don't do anything, it says you didn't put in all the required parameters. There's a bunch. I can even do dash question mark or dash help, and it will give me an overview of what I need to do. So that's already that, and it works. If I don't type anything that I need, then it will say you didn't put anything in. So there's all kinds of checks on this thing. Now, if I do Python pbcp.py and I do localhost Stack Overflow, because I have the Stack Overflow database here, so that's server database, and now I need a table, so let's do a few minutes left. Yeah, let's go straight to the users table. Nice, 11 and a something million rows, and I am going to export that to the output users.csv, and I want the let's just keep the rest. So I can do quiet here, and it will be quiet, and I can say progress indicator value, and I can use the short or the long version. So the short version would be the P. So I could do P and then 10, and every 10 rows it will tell me, but I'm just keeping it at 1,000,000, and I want the progress indicator value here. If I now hit enter, it will write the header and then start exporting, and I can even show you that a file is appearing there. And after, there we go. This is 12 seconds. The first 1,000,000 rows are done, and it will continue until it exported the whole thing, and it takes about 2 minutes. This is about 3 minutes left in the thing. I had a, ooh, what are you doing? I clicked on something, sorry. If you want to tinker with this code, I've put it on my GitHub. My GitHub is just André Kamman. Yeah, it's easy to find, and the exact code that you just saw is there, that I'm running right now. That code is there. So you can just grab it and do something with it. I've also written something, because I'm actually going to use this for something, and I've also written something that takes the file and I can do a cutoff where it writes multiple files, because that would be faster with Polybase importing and easier to handle from local to remote and whatnot. I'm using this code. Really quick, not a big advertisement for myself, but this is just if you want to get in touch with me, Twitter is probably the best thing, or andrekamman@gmail.com. That works best. Let's see what the code is doing in the meantime. Yeah, still working. So far so good. And should it be arc.quiet? I'm actually now looking at the comments. I probably missed copying a line where I put the arc. Yeah, you're probably right. So if I do quiet is arc.quiet, because I'm lazy and I don't want to. Yes, there we are. Thank you, Ben. Arc. Why is it now complaining about that? Args. Come on. Args.quiet. Here we go. Thank you, Ben, again. Yeah, that's it. I missed a bit of code where this. You can see that here I'm using args.sql server because that's where the command line stuff goes, and I forgot to put that in the command line in the variable that I'm using here. So I had to type if not args.quiet, but I just to be short I left that in there. Only a minute left. These things are really short. Half an hour is not really a lot. Don't worry about it. There's a lot of things that you can learn in Python that are really easy. Error handling is super simple. Looks a lot like PowerShell, and the way you write functions is really cool. We can ping me offline and I'll show you. But it's really cool to write functions. Really simple. We have 1 minute left, so I'll hang out in the the day started with a general introduction meeting. I'll hang out in that link if you have any questions, and I hope you found this useful, even though it was just a little bit of code, but it actually did something. And thanks to Ben, it actually works already. Also, we debugged it, and I hope you enjoyed it. That's it.